Happy New Year to you all. John Barnes here, just in case you didn't recognize me. But that's showbiz. Not been around much in the last year. Been busy doing other things. Although every time anything to do with racism has reared its ugly head, people have misunderstood and misconstrued what I've been trying to say, because little snippets of what I have been saying have been taken out and constructed to create, in my opinion, what is an agenda against me, to make me out to be a racist apologist or sticking up for racists and stupid things like that. So I've decided now that I'm going to go on video on YouTube, and anything I have to say, as much as I still will be every now and again on Sky and BBC when things happen, people may want to talk to me about certain things, to give you a comprehensive outlook on what I actually mean and what I'm trying to say, straight from the horse's mouth, rather than somebody taking a little snippet of what I actually mean. Because of course last year I came in for a bit of criticism on many different subjects, namely Liam Neeson or Bernardo Silva or Peter Beardsley, because little snippets of what I said were taken completely out of context to create this perception of me. And I will be going back to them. In fact, I'm going to start off with those particular subjects so that people know exactly where I stand and what I actually stand for and what I believe to be true. When I was a 17-year-old footballer, and in 1980, 1981, and of course then overt racism was everywhere in society. And I've always said, as long as it exists in society, it will exist in all walks of society, of which football is but one. Football is a microcosm of society. You can't take football out of society and say, if we get rid of racism in football, then society will be okay. We have to tackle it in society first. And I've always thought that. So as a young footballer, when I got racially abused at football matches, first of all, I'd come from Jamaica as a middle class, fully empowered young man by my parents and by my environment and the family I was actually brought up in. So I couldn't feel disenfranchised or inferior because some idiot was going to shout racist abuse at me. Now, obviously for different people, they react in different ways. And of course, back then, you had black players who it affected, who would, react in a different way than I reacted, which isn't right or it isn't wrong. You have to react in the way that you react. So first of all, I never suffered from racism. I got a lot of racism, but I never suffered from it because it never affected me. Now, as I said, people deal with it in different ways, which is fine. But I'll tell you what did affect me. When those racists were shouting at me, and I knew that had I been playing for their club, they would probably be cheering me, because I saw even my own fans racially abusing black players from other teams. Secondly, I knew that being on the football field, I was safe. As much as these idiots are shouting at you, they would never come on the field and do anything. And also, if I ever confronted them, not in an aggressive manner, if I ever looked at them and just said, "What are you talking about?" They'll go, "No, Barnes, you're all right," because they're cowards. And there were safety in numbers, so therefore there was bravado, going around like louts. But of course, if I ever saw any of them in the street one-on-one, they'd be going, "Barnes, can you sign this autograph?" As much as they may be racially abusing me, because that's what unconscious racism is. So from that point of view, I never affected me in any way, shape or form. But secondly, I never took that form of racism seriously, because that is unreal. Those idiots who are going to shout out would be cheering me if I played for their team and they would score. I saw the way they treated Bobby Barnes at West Ham when he scored, and the West Ham fans racially abused me. So, but why were they racially abusing the black players in their team? Because that is what unconscious bias does. Anyway, but what did affect me was when I saw black football fans who had to get to the ground, and Ian Wright will say the same thing. Wright was a Millwall supporter, and he'll tell you, when they had to get to the ground 10 minutes after the match had started, because they wouldn't want to be with football fans going there because of the abuse they would face. They had to leave the ground 10 minutes before the match finished so they wouldn't get, never mind racially abused, physically attacked. And I thought, that is what racism is for the average black person, not for the superstar, elite black footballer or black actor or black politician. For the average black person, that is what we have to challenge. And I've always felt that was what we had to do, even back then. So when we then got on the coach to go back to Liverpool or back to Watford when I played for Watford, And of course, the coach, you'd have lots of football fans, you know, once again, the cowards shouting racist abuse for you. They never do it up front to your face or by themselves, but in numbers there was safety. And they would be shouting racist abuse at the coach as I sat in the back of the coach in a nice big leather chair, drinking a glass of wine and eating my fillet steak on the way home. Once again, I felt safe. Nothing could happen for me, but they're there shouting abuse at me. And as you had hundreds of fans as we're driving out to the ground or by the ground, you then look and see some black fans who were cowering away, hiding, because they know what would happen to them if people saw them and the abuse that they would take. And I thought, that is what we need to stop. That is what we have to do. And this was in 1980-81. And here we are now in 2020, still talking about how terrible it is for black footballers, for the black elite, who can't get Oscars and they can't get BAFTAs. Of course, the BAFTAs has just been now and it's a big storm because it's a bit too white. And who's talking about what's going on in the inner cities for our young black kids who aren't being given opportunities? And that's what we should be doing. I can do that back then because as a black footballer, we never had a voice to talk about racism. We just got on with it. And of course now, black footballers have a voice. So what should that voice be used for? That, yes, talk about racism in their own sport, in their field, in their space, which is a new word which people now used to use. I'm in that space. But to make a real impactful difference to discrimination, racism, why don't you use that voice to talk about what's going on in your communities? That's what I say to Raheem. Why don't you use that voice to talk about what's going on in Stonebridge Park, the area where you're from, where young kids are being disenfranchised? So it's fantastic and it's great for you to give 350 tickets, semi-final tickets to kids in the inner cities or Stonebridge Park, semi-final tickets when Man City were there. What would be better if you took those 350 kids into a press conference, as you can. You can call a press conference and say, these kids aren't being given an education, social opportunities, vocational opportunities. They're being disenfranchised. Talk about the knife crime that's going on. Talk about these kids and demand, because you can, I can't anymore, but you can, that they be treated with respect. That's going to have much more impact on them. So that's what I said about Raheem Sterling. I wasn't criticizing him as much as people thought I was. Same thing with Jadon Sancho, who's now in Dortmund. When Jadon Sancho spoke about young black kids not being put off becoming professional footballers because of the racist abuse that they're now getting. And I said, I think he's from Kennington in the Oval in South London, which is an area, inner city area, which is quite depressed and underfunded and underdeveloped and need more social opportunities for young kids in that area. If you want to see what racism is, give up football. Go back to the inner city where you came from, your community where you came from. I don't know whether you've got GCSEs and A-levels and a degree, so therefore you may be able to get out of the system. But if you were playing football at a young age, you probably haven't. But if you couldn't play football and you're back in that area with the kids you were brought up with, then you'll see what real racism is. And that's what we have to do. So instead of talking about Montenegro and Serbia and football, look what's going on in the inner cities and use the voice that you actually have, because you've now got a voice. People have to listen to you. People have to listen to you. People didn't have to listen to me, but they have to listen to you. Use that voice to talk about real issues. Not Montenegro, not Serbia, not Dortmund. Yes, it's bad. Now, once again, I'm glad I'm doing this and I want people to listen to it in its entirety so that they don't say, John Barnes says there's no racism in football. Of course there's racism in football. As I always said since I was 17, as long as it exists in life, it'll exist in football. And that's what we have to tackle it first. Not a chicken and an egg situation, whereby which came first, the chicken or the egg. Which do we have to tackle first, football or society? We have to tackle it in society first. And then it'll filter up or down, whichever way you want to see it, into all walks of society. And a lot of elite black people are telling me, yes, we have to do both. We have to do both. We do have to do both, but we're not doing both. I'll tell you who's doing the other, which is talking about what's going on in the inner cities and the communities. The voiceless. The hundreds of workers in the communities who no one knows. They're not famous, they're not elite, but they're doing lots of good work in the communities to try and change things. They haven't got a voice. They're trying to do the other. What are the elite people like me trying to do? What we're trying to do is talk about how terrible it is in football, how terrible it is in acting, how terrible it is in singing, how terrible it is that an elite group of people can't get where they want to get to in society because of discrimination. And we're calling upon the voiceless, the disenfranchised, the real people who, A, haven't got a voice, but B, haven't got hope. And they look to us to give them hope. And unfortunately, what has happened is that the little bit of glory that they get, the little bit of respect that they get is through us, in terms of insisting that we get to where we want to get to, and then they'll feel better. So if John Barnes can get a job as a manager, if Stormzy can get a BAFTA or whatever that music award is, and if Idris Elba can get an Oscar, that'll make us feel good. Because they really have given up on themselves in terms of the demands that they're putting on the council, on the government, on the communities, for a better life for them and their children. They've given up hope on that because they think that's never going to happen. So what I'm saying is that I'm okay. Yes, I want to be a football manager. And I know that unconscious bias is stopping me and people like me being a football manager. But my life is okay. My life is okay. What's your life like? What is your life like as a black person living in inner cities with no hope, fighting for John Barnes to get out, and feeling good when Raheem Sterling comes out and says what he says about Montenegro? But who's speaking for you? And that is what I'm urging all of the black elite. I'm going to talk about an elite. It's not some kind of Illuminati. An elite black person, in my opinion, is someone who has made it out of the environment and the community that they're in to have a better life. So, businessmen, doctors, lawyers, broadcasters, footballers, boxers, sportsmen, singers, I class us as the black elite. And unfortunately, what the majority of us are now doing is now saying, can we get more black people to be elite like us, to get into positions we're in? However, what they should be doing is saying, can we go into the inner cities and can we create an environment for the average black person to be able to help himself, to be given that level of respect? And he may not be brilliant. He doesn't have to be a brilliant singer, doctor, banker, footballer. He's an average person who wants equal opportunities. Not equality. Equality doesn't exist because people are always going to be treated differently. But you want the equal opportunity. And the equal opportunity means providing an environment for an average black kid to become a bus driver, to become whatever you want, whatever he is able to become. Instead of saying to these young black kids, look at John Barnes, so therefore you can do that. Look at Obama, you can do that. Yeah, Obama did it, so therefore I can do it. But I'm being excluded from school. The level of education I'm getting in my community means that I can't even get GCSEs. How am I going to become a prime minister? How am I going to become a prime minister? So, this is the introduction to what I'm going to be doing from now on. As I said, I have to be concise, as people tell me. I have to slow down, and I have to be to the point. So the next time you hear from me, which is going to be very soon, because I don't want you to be watching half an hour of me just rambling on, I'm going to be very specific in specific incidents that have happened and that continue to happen, just to make 4 or 5 minutes specific incidents to make it clear as to how I feel about certain things. Don't believe what you read in the media about me.